Hello, I'm Christine Schiavone and our show is Spiritual Exploration. Tonight we're going to talk about paranormal experiences and investigations. I have here with me two fellows that I've known for a very long time, and finally we got it together to do a show together. I have to my left Brian Cano and to my right Chris Mancuso. And thank you very much for coming onto the show tonight.
Oh, thanks for having
I'm
us.
sure it's going to be very interesting because you fellas have had a very interesting time. How many years you've been doing paranormal investigations?
12 years now, going on 13, lucky number 13.
Yeah,
Going
yeah.
on 13,
We're
wow.
really dating ourselves now, but
Well, that's okay, that's okay. Well, that's all right because this is my 15th year doing spiritual exploration. I did my first show in August of 1999. So we're celebrating my 15th year doing spiritual exploration, and let me tell you, the years went by very fast.
they do go by quick, and what
Don't
better
they?
way to celebrate than to have us on, because
That's
we're great.
right,
There you go.
absolutely, absolutely, that's right.
Well, either to celebrate or to end the series.
Yeah, either or.
Anyway, though, so you fellows have had so much experience that you even came up with a card game.
We did. It's one of those things. Now, we started here on CTV. I remember when we first started, you saw us.
That's right,
We
yes.
did our show called Scared on Staten Island.
That's right.
And I gotta say, it's a wonder we ever made it to this point. Thank God for Kenny and Kimbra and Eileen and the entire CTV staff, because we wouldn't have made it without their help. But now, 12 years later, you look around at the paranormal landscape and everyone is doing documentaries. Now that it's easy to go online or onto YouTube, it's very easy to make your own productions. So when the world zigs, we zag. We figured, let's have some fun.
Well, you started out as Scared on Staten Island, and then you started branching out to going to other states for investigations. So you dropped the on Staten Island, and now you're just scared.
Correct.
That's correct. Yeah, yeah. We've been scared ever since.
We've been scared.
You know, it's funny because I would say to people, I'm doing a show with the scared people. Well, what are they scared of?
What are they scared of? Yeah, I've heard that many times over the years.
I remember being on the subway, and I had my Scared on Staten Island pin on, and I'm just holding onto the thing, riding, and the guy looks at me and goes, "What's there to be scared of in Staten Island?" And I was like, "You wait, you watch."
Well, Staten Island is a very haunted place.
A lot of history here, for sure.
A lot of history, a lot of spirits, a lot of things have happened here. A lot of historical events. We've had people here like Santa Anna spent some time over at the rectory at Blessed Sacrament. He lived there for a little bit. We have had George Washington's been here, and all kinds of George Harrison.
Yes, George Harrison was
George
here.
Harrison was here.
Okay, yeah, he was. Anyway, though, we have a lot of history. Some of our founding fathers have been here. So let's just talk a little bit about your little game here called Three Pillars. So what is, just give us a brief idea of what the game is about. It's a card game.
Yes. The title of it is called The Three Pillars, a paranormal card game. Now, The Three Pillars is a reference to our team. Scared is built on what we call the three-pillar system. That's psychic, scientist, and skeptic. It's a system of checks and balances that, going into any investigation, we have three different viewpoints. So we're looking at whatever phenomenon from those three vantage points. Because of that, we almost never agree, but it creates a more fair and balanced investigation, because, you know, if you have everyone going in thinking the exact same thing,
Right.
chances are you're going to leave with exactly what you came to look for.
Well, you have to go in there saying it could be, or maybe it is, maybe it isn't. As far as, you know, what the activity that's going on in this specific place that you're investigating. As far as that's concerned, though, you have to have an open mind, and yet you have to say, well, maybe there's something else to this too. So like you said, you can't just go in there with the idea, okay, it's going to be this and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to follow the evidence, and sometimes if that means leaving and saying, there's nothing here, or hey, we didn't get anything this time, then that's fair. You leave and you don't try to build it up for more than it is.
Right, right. Well, tell me about some of the experiences you've had, though. I mean, you must have had experiences where you actually saw something happen or felt something happen, or there's experiences that absolutely scared you.
Well, it's taken 12 years. Both Chris and I are in very different places than we were when we started. Back in the Scared on Staten Island days, I was the skeptic. I was the guy who...
I remember. Do you remember we were a whole bunch of people? We were in the Muddy Cup that night. You were the
Muddy
skeptic.
Cup.
You had the camera,
Okay.
and we went through that back room with two different teams, and I
Oh,
was
I remember
with
this.
both teams. It just came to me now.
He's like,
I was
I
trying to
remember
forget.
this.
The first time through that room, the first group of people came to the conclusion that there was a little 7-year-old girl there, that there was an irate spirit that was upset about something, we didn't know what, and there was another person there. And you were with the second group that came into that room, and you were behind the camera, and you were the skeptic, but also you were very perceptive as well. And you're behind the camera, and we're going through the same routine that we did before with the other group. And I heard you from behind the camera saying, "There's an irate spirit here, and he's bothering me."
I don't recall that, but I do remember the event.
Yeah.
I do remember ending up in one of the cemeteries that night with that group of psychics. It was an interesting night because even when you take that viewpoint, and a lot of people just take psychics and lump them together and like, oh, psychics are all one thing. They're people just like everyone else, so they all have different methods, different viewpoints
Oh, sure.
within that subcategory.
Different ways of receiving information.
And I remember that night, and again, I'm still skeptical, but I'm not skeptical of the phenomenon. I know the phenomenon exists. It's more the people who report it that I'm skeptical of. And Chris, you started out as the guy in the middle.
I did. And by 2006, which is probably, I became a full-on skeptic, I think. And that was right around the time we were doing that, because I was with you guys too, and I remember thinking, well, all the psychics walking around, I'm like, wow, these guys are nuts, you know. That's what I thought, you know. But since then, I've actually had my own experience, which is one of the reasons that I really got into the paranormal too, wanting to have that experience. And I did, and it really, you know, the paranormal experience that I had opened my eyes and changed my perception and my beliefs about a lot of things within the paranormal. Any
particular experience that really changed your mind?
Well, there's one. Your show's not long enough for me to give you the whole breakdown on it, but I'll tell you something that happened to me fairly recently. My wife and I, right now, we're very involved in cat rescue and animal rescue, and the reason why is I saw a ghost cat in my house.
Really?
I did. We had to put one of our cats to sleep, our old cat, and just like a year later. Now, I had since we have 3 cats since that one passed. And my wife is telling me I'm seeing shadows, and it looks to me like I'm seeing a cat. I'm like, of course you're seeing a cat. We have 3 cats. There's cats everywhere. So I totally blew her off, like, you know. Then one night I'm coming out of my office, and it's not uncommon for my cats to walk into my office. So I see, you know, the cat's back and the tail up in the air is black, just like our son and girl that we had to put to sleep. So and also my Van Duzer. He's another black cat, so I'm like, okay, it's Van Duzer.
Is that the one that you found on Van Duzer?
That's the one I found on Van Duzer Street.
That's right,
and rescued him.
Home.
Yep. And I said, you can't stay in here. And I looked down, but there's no cat there. I peeked my head out the door, and he's sitting on the couch. And the 2 little female kittens that we had at the time were with my wife. So I'm like, but I just saw a cat. I know I make fun of people for stuff like this, you know. I know I'm not crazy. So after that, I started really thinking, well, animals, maybe they do have spirits. And that got me really into animal rescue, saying, wow, if they have spirits, you know, I want to try to do whatever I can while they're alive to make their lives a little bit better. So that had definitely changed me a lot.
Wow, now just seeing the cat spirit. So do you still see it?
I haven't seen it since. I have not.
Probably just wanted you to know that it was around.
And it was almost a year to the day we had put it to sleep. You know what I mean? It was within that month that we had put it to sleep, like a year later, and I saw, like I said, the ghost cat, and it really affected me pretty deeply.
Did you see any human ghosts ever?
No.
Really?
No. And it's funny because, like, when we do investigations, one of the things I love to have on me is a camera to try to catch some kind of apparition. And it's been 12 years, and I have yet to catch an apparition. Maybe I should just give up the camera. I don't know.
Well, have you had any apparitions or anything ever show up?
For me, I've seen and felt everything up until the Holy Grail of them all, the full-bodied apparition. I've been poked, scratched. I've seen shadow forms. I've seen light forms. I've seen will-o'-the-wisps. Every kind of activity you can think of, we've kind of touched upon it, but I have yet to see anything that I feel like, hey, I'm speaking to you. Oh, but you weren't there. Like, not yet. And I guess maybe I never will. Maybe it's not my time, but I'm going to keep looking.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I've always been interested in the spirit world and what might be going on over there. And, you know, I think we do get some ideas here and there about what goes on the other side and what doesn't. And, you know, we know that our loved ones are around us and that and we also have a guardian angel, we have guides, we have different spirits that are always around us. Each and every one of us has an entourage. And so, who knows, and you know, we just never see these people or whoever they are, spirits, angels, whatever.
My guardian angel's probably going like this all the time.
I can't believe I picked this guy.
I got stuck with this nut, you know?
No, I want to tell you something. They have unconditional love. So they're not criticizing us, I'm sure. So anyway, all right. So what states have you investigated in?
Most of them.
Really, most of them?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to travel with John Zaffis, connected with the show Haunted Collector.
That's right.
So
I used to watch it all the time. It's too bad it's not on anymore. I
well,
enjoyed
thank you.
that show. It was
I
good.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, we got out to Hawaii, Puerto Rico, and all points in between.
So jealous. I'm hella jealous.
I mean, I went to places that I never thought I would go to. I mean, Montana, parts of the country that you wouldn't think of. Like, all right, if you're going to plan a vacation, there's certain spots that are on the list. Tip City, Ohio, is not one of those locations, but some profound things happen to us in every city, and we would call Chris from the road, and we're like, "Hey, we're on our way here. We're on our way here. This is what just happened. Oh my!" So I feel like you were kind of with us, even though you physically weren't there, and so much has happened.
When you went to each state, you were going to a particular place because there was a hauntings reported in these places.
Yes.
So anything, any kind of famous places like the Winchester House or anything like that?
Well, I mean, in paranormal circles, there are somewhat famous places that become notorious for being haunted, but I think we try to stay away from those because those are almost like touristy attractions.
Right, so yeah.
But if you want to talk famous, we did have a case at Orson Welles' old residence in California.
Really? Wow.
It was owned by Paul Williams, songwriter, and I got to meet him and interview him, and it was cool because there was so much. We like to talk about history, and it seems like with the paranormal, it's always a ghost from the 1800s or the Civil War, George Washington. This was Orson Welles, a modern ghost. When we're speaking about spirits. And, I mean, we joke about it all the time. What are the three ghosts in every location?
The angry man in the attic,
The kid who lost the ball.
The kid who lost the ball, and the lady in white.
And the lady in white. Same three ghosts everywhere. But
That's right.
They just make their rounds.
Yeah,
Today I'm going to haunt over here.
they're very
Tomorrow I'm
busy.
going to be over here.
It's a union. They get their card, they punch in. But this was interesting, and it didn't make the episode, but I feel there was a moment where we did kind of contact Orson Welles.
It's very possible,
And
I'm sure.
and again, Brian from 2002, the skeptic, to Brian 2014, who's a skeptical believer. For me to say that and to not really knock myself on the head and go, "What are you saying?" It just sounds amazing. It sounds almost too amazing. But I feel at that moment, wow, I think we touched something.
Have you ever heard a spirit speak to you?
Yes, or rather, I think so. I have no concrete proof of that. I have no way to say, yes, this was definitely a spirit, but I mean, I've heard things that I can't find logical explanations for.
But you did get a lot of EVPs along the way, right?
I actually had I had something speak directly to me. We were staying at a place called the Knickerbocker Hotel in Linesville, Pennsylvania. And this is after a convention. We were speaking at a convention. And the woman who owns the hotel It's not like an active hotel where you can like rent rooms and stuff. But she owns the hotel. She said, you guys can stay with me. I said, great. She put us up, and now the woman's name is Peg. And Peg, you're a sweetheart, but I say this all the time. She doesn't stop talking. So for like 3 hours, I had to hear about how haunted her hotel is. And I'm like bleary-eyed by this point. 3 hours later, oh my God, you can tell me another story, please. But by the time I'm ready to go to bed, I go into my room, which was supposedly the room where Lorraine Warren always used to stay and say there was activity. I said, well, I want that room because, at this point I still really was very skeptical on things. But I put on my Spider-Man feety pajamas, I shut the door, and as I shut the light, I hear a whisper in my ear. It goes, we're right here.
Oh, no.
Right. Now, my first instinct would have been to run and tell everybody, but I know if I talk to Peg and I tell her that, I'm never going to sleep until,
She'll be telling you more
daybreak. Right.
stories about whoever it
I
might
didn't
be.
have any equipment to go actually investigate and capture this evidence, so I did the most logical, bravest thing I think I could do, was I tiptoed to my bed, pulled the covers up over my head, and just went to sleep.
You were able to go to sleep after
I
that?
did. About 15 minutes later, I was like, please, please leave me alone. Please leave me alone.
Well, yeah, if you tell them that, if you, say, I really don't want this going on, please just,
Yeah.
I mean, I was asleep in actually, I have to say, an old friend had a funeral home, and I actually spent some time there, and I actually slept there. And one night I was sleeping, and there were like 3 people that had been brought in for funerals that were downstairs, and I was sleeping, and I heard a lot of racket going on down the hall. These 3 were partying together, okay? And I just got up, walked out in the hall, and said, will you please calm down and just keep it quiet? I'm trying to sleep, party later. And they did. They quieted down and let me alone.
Nice.
Why I tell everybody that says that they feel that they have something going on and it bothers them and all, just open your mouth and tell them stop it. That's all.
Well, you have to take domain over your place. I always
That's
tell
right.
people, I'm like, okay, how many of you have kids? And invariably, oh, I've got kids. I'm like, okay, well, if your child left laundry on the floor, what would you say? Oh, pick that up now. And you meant it, and they'll obey. That's what you have to do. You have to assert yourself that, like, here,
That's
you got to
right.
do what I say.
That's it. You're in my house, and you got to play by my rules or get out. And then, and if it's a negative spirit altogether, you just say, just get out, don't stay at all. You do. You have to be assertive when you have spirit around like that. You have to be assertive and tell them, this is something that you're disturbing me. I'm trying to live my life, and you're not part of it, so go.
Yeah, unless he's paying rent, I don't want any spirits in my
That's right.
house. You know what I mean?
Well, we got them to pay rent. As many as they want can come.
That's right. Anybody can hang out
Chip in
there.
a little for food, some bills, then you can stay. Otherwise, leave me alone.
Well, at that point, then it's a benevolent spirit, so why not? I mean, I used to have a house that I was renting, and there was a door that, because we put some carpet down, the door was scraping on the carpet, so we had to take the door off to have a little bit shaved from the bottom.
Okay.
So while the door's laying against the wall, the tenant moves in and says something about the door being up, and I says, no, the door's not up, it's against, no, it's up. This benevolent spirit in this house actually thought the door needed to be hung, and hung it. Because that was the only explanation that we had. Everybody else said, no, I didn't do anything with that.
It's better than knocking things off of shelf
I
or
guess
breaking
that's
windows.
Well, some of them can be very destructive too.
Yes.
Some of them, I think, is because they're downright evil, and others is because they're trying to get somebody's attention.
Yes.
So have you had things like that happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's 2 different categories. I mean, for us on Haunted Collector, most of the cases that we were responding to were from people who didn't know what was going on, who were having negative spirits interacting with them, and they were at the end of their rope. So be it a residence or a business, they were like, hey guys, we need help and we need it now. With us, we tend to stay away from residential cases because I kind of feel like, all right, we come in, we investigate, we do what we have to do, and you see this a lot with newer groups that have been forming. They're in it for the exploration. They're in it for the knowledge. They have their own questions that they want answered. Yet when they leave that person's house, whatever they did, that family now has to deal with. So we feel it's best to not stir that pot.
And a lot of times
So-
when you go on an investigation, it can stir up more activity. So unless you're going there to do a clearing, or which we don't do, you can leave these people with worse activity than when you showed up. And that's the thing. Like, people would ask me, "Oh, do you do clearing?" I don't do clearings. We don't do anything like that. Again, you have to assert yourself in your house. I can come in and say, "Get out." I don't live here. You know, it doesn't mean anything. I'm not qualified to do that. I tell people I'm a paranormal investigator and I'm a documentarian. If you want me to come there and film something, fine, but don't expect me to try to exercise your living room, because that's not going to happen. I could put you in touch with people who can help, but don't look to me for that.
Right, right.
You know.
So basically, you just go in for the information that you can gather.
Collecting data and all that stuff, you know.
Right.
trying to
Yeah,
collect
you're not
evidence.
into the spiritual end of going around and taking the incense and the other stuff.
Well, I mean, not that we're not spiritual. It's one of those things where I feel that, for me, and this is a personal choice, I try to stay away from hubris as much as possible.
From who?
Hubris.
Hubris, what's that?
Who am I to say that I know the plan? Who am I to say, you must go into the light, because maybe that spirit is here for a reason. Maybe our creator of the universe put that spirit there right then for a purpose. And who am I to subvert that with my personal meaning? But I mean, for other people, you know, if that's what they do, hey, we clear, we do blessings, hey, that's your job.
Right.
It's not mine.
Right, right.
I mean, a lot of the way I think Brian agrees with this, the way we look at the paranormal is, all right, if you go on safari in Africa, you're not going to jump in the lion's den.
No.
You know what I mean? And film them. You're going to be far away with a telephoto lens. Let me catch the activity that way. And we kind of try to separate ourselves like that. Like, we're not going to jump in and, jump in the lion's den per se, and scratch me, do this, and
Yeah, we're documentarians, not exterminators.
exactly.
Have you
We're
ever
not
had
Ghostbusters,
a
as cool as they are.
spirit
I wish.
follow you or go home with you or anything like that?
If they have, I have blinders on, like literally. When I go home, that's my safe zone. I don't practice at home. I don't experiment at home. I don't test any new equipment at home. When I'm there, I'm watching funny movies. I'm watching sci-fi and fantasy, and I'm in a different world because that's my safe zone. So if anything did follow me home, I don't acknowledge it. So without acknowledgement, it's going to go and find its way.
Because it's not getting any attention.
Exactly.
Yeah, that happens. I was told once that a spirit followed me back from a visit to a cemetery, but I just turned around and said, "Go back to where you belong. You don't belong here." And I was never bothered. You know, it's true. It's true that that you can't really show fear, because that's when
Yeah.
if you're afraid and you think you have something in your house and you're really afraid of it and it's scaring you, they thrive on that.
And if you're into the paranormal, getting into the paranormal, you like the TV shows, and you want to do your own investigating, a piece of advice for everybody watching is, do not investigate your own house. Because people do that. And I've had people on, particularly this one woman on Facebook, investigate her own house, doing EVP sessions.
On her own?
In her own house.
So what'd she go and buy one of those little recorders?
Yeah, she had, I guess, an audio recorder, and she says, all right, after that activity started, but what she also was doing was provoking.
Right.
So, she's trying to get that reaction by making whatever spirit is there very angry. And I always give the analogy, I tell people, look, you come into my house, let's say, and you call me a fat jerk, okay? You might be 100% right, but you're still gonna get punched in the nose and you still deserve it. So that's what happened to this woman, in her own house. She caused her own problems by investigating and provoking, and that is a big no. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, I imagine that's not a good idea. I mean, in my own home, sometimes, you're laying in bed and suddenly you're awake and you hear things that go bump in the night, and what are you going to do? Jump up and go running around being scared? No, you just say, whatever that was, stop it, just roll over and go back to sleep. Because
Sometimes it's the best
we're
thing
all
to
going to hear
ignore it.
noises in the house. There's going to be creaks and house settling and this and that. And
Absolutely.
maybe a mouse or something, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, not everything, too, like tell people, not everything is a ghost. And as far as the way we operate on investigations, like, we both acknowledge the existence of paranormal, but that shouldn't be the first conclusion you jump to. It should be the last one. Eliminate everything else. and then you could positively say that is paranormal, and then it's a safe bet, But if it's like spooky ghost, really.
I mean, we deal in question marks, and for the most part, we have very few explanations. We have very few facts to say, yes, this is it. Here's the rule book. Here's the manual. This is what you need to know. We're still, I mean, the paranormal in general, at least our end, the scientific part of it, is very much a pseudoscience. We don't even have a hypothesis yet. We're not even close to a theory because we're still postulating the maybes. And unfortunately, what we have going on right now today is a lot of Hollywood science. You watch the movies, you watch the shows, and people go, oh, I can do that. And then they go out, they buy the newest gadget, they do exactly what they see on TV or in the movies, and they go, yes, I'm an investigator. And they end up making things worse. So we go in, you go in, and you're like, ooh, yeah, this is just all sorts of wrong now. So I feel that a measure of discretion at all stages of the game is good to start with.
Oh yeah, well you have to. You have to be discreet. You have to also, I guess, walk in there with a clear head and a belief that, well, maybe we'll find something, maybe we won't. And if you do, like I was saying before, you can't show fear, because then they take your energy. Then they take that fear and they work on you with it.
It's almost like, not to say, I mean, we're human. I've been scared. You've been scared. We have that reaction because we're dealing with something that is not the norm. But say you're a doctor. Are you going to show fear? Like, hey, if you're a lawyer, whatever your profession is, whatever you're doing, if you're going to be that challenged by it to the fact where you're in danger, is that something you really should be doing?
Right. No, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. People that are really, really afraid of these things shouldn't get involved in them.
Yeah.
That is very true. And there are, because we're talking about like people who watch the shows and just come into the field, and really like we said, they watch this TV show, they see them using all this cool gadget with lights on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out and buy it, and I'm gonna go to the nearest cemetery, and I'm gonna use it, and I'm gonna find ghosts. But they don't even know why they're using the equipment that they just bought at the store for $300 because they saw it on X TV show. So one of the new projects that we're doing is called the Paranormal Compendium. And what that essentially will kind of be is like a video encyclopedia. Because, I always tell people the best thing to do is pick up and read a book. But if they don't want to read a book, you know what? This is a video encyclopedia. You'll get all this knowledge and learn about the things that you don't really know about because you just watch it on TV and go pick up a meter and think you're finding ghosts.
Well, that's the thing. It's not so much a how to investigate. It's not a how-to. It's a why. What are the basics? Who are the pioneers? Who are the names that you need to know? Like literally, Chris says they watch TV, and they're waving the meat around. And I could ask them, why are you using that? Oh, I don't know.
I saw it on TV.
What does it do? Oh, it finds ghosts. No. Like you said, bad. No. People don't understand why they're doing what they do. It's not like you get into a car. You have to know what everything does before you can operate it.
Yeah.
And by that token, we want to give people those basics and say, hey, we've made all the mistakes. We still have more to make. But in our 12 years, here's what we know. Here, take it. Get up
Maybe
here.
you ought to write a book of some sort too, about all your experiences and what you know and what to do and what not to do.
We've been
sure you
considering
must
that for 10
know a
years
lot
now.
of it. Well, what's keeping you?
We're making games. We're
We're
making
games,
documentaries.
and everything.
Well, this is something very good. Making a game. I mean, that took a lot of thought.
Here's the thing about this. In each of the cards now, it's a game. There's little factoids on a lot of the cards. So as you're playing it,
You're
the
learning
little,
something.
The little facts are there don't come into play during the game, but you're sitting there, you're flipping through the cards, you're reading the facts. You might learn something accidentally, and that's what we want to do.
Well,
we
that's
want
good.
to instill that in people.
Well, if anybody wants to get the game, they go where to
It's available on Amazon, I believe,
Amazon.
and it's also available on our website.
It's called Three Pillars,
Paranormal card game.
the paranormal card game. Over here or over here? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, Three Pillars paranormal card game, and you go to Amazon.com or your website, which is
www.neverstopsearching.com. neverstopsearching.com.
Neverstopsearching.com. Okay, good.
And the game itself mimics a paranormal investigation, where there's a location card, and you'll pick your pillar, whether it be the psychic, the scientist, or the skeptic, assign them to that location, and then play evidence. Let's say if we have whatever location is the Lizzie Borden house, and you need 12 points of evidence to close out that case, you're going to play evidence, and each one is like an EVP, photographic anomaly, ITC, full-bodied apparition, which is very rare.
Which is
But-
you're still waiting for that,
But
huh?
it's all stuff very relevant to the paranormal and things that go on investigations
And
and
because
in the field.
and because we're native Staten Islanders, this very much is our game. It's for everyone, but there's locations in there that are familiar to Islanders, like the Garibaldi Museum, the old Staten Island Hospital.
Staten Island Hospital.
A lot of things that happen in the game mimic things that happen to us, and through the play, we're like, oh, that happened to. Remember that time this happened to us, and it's exciting and you have some fun.
So in other words, you picked a lot of locations that you, on the island that you knew were haunted.
Yes.
And you think the old Staten Island Hospital is haunted? It's an empty building now. It's a show.
Well, half of it is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the R.L.
That's the-
Smith
that's the
Infirmary
building
is
I was
gone.
born in, yeah.
Me too. I was born in Staten Island Hospital as well.
The one on
That's probably why they
Castleton.
took it down.
Erase all knowledge.
Remember when they had somebody who was in there renting out?
Yes.
Yes, that was right after we went there.
We had a
too.
hand in that. Well, not the renting, but the
We had a hand
exposing.
in that. We were collecting rent. Yeah. Somebody was collecting rent from squatters in there.
I know, yeah.
That was
Remember that?
what, back in 2003?
It's 2000. That's when we did our investigation. It was 2003. I think it happened
Well-
like 2004.
Now here's the, and we tell this story a lot. When we were filming our investigation there. Now back then, investigations were more just like urban explorations. We were going in with cameras just to see what we could find with our 5 senses and the camera. Now, as we're going through the abandoned hallways and the dilapidated rooms and all the spots in that when they attempted to make it into condos, people had started to move in. When they lost funding, everyone was evicted and all their belongings stayed in there. The elements and time had kind of enshrined those things in those rooms. So essentially we were walking around a big ruin until we got to the first floor and we got to this dead-end hallway, and I noticed that there was a pair of nice new Timberland boots sitting in front of a doorway as if somebody had taken them off before they went into their house. And from under the door was a flickering light. So it was Chris and I, and this was a T-junction, and we're looking down to the end of the hall, and me, Chris, and our buddy Greg were there, and Greg said, what do you think we should do? I said, well, maybe we should call out so that they open the door. Greg said, well, let's go knock on the door. We started to bicker back and
They're
forth for
going
5
back-
minutes.
yeah, they're going
back
back
and
and
forth,
forth.
back and forth. As
What
while
you
we're
gonna
bickering,
do?
he takes into his own hands.
I took some initiative here. I'm like, because this is getting nowhere with the. So I just go, hello. The door opens up and a dude peeks his head out, like, and we're just like, oh, hey, how you doing? You know? He was like, what are you guys doing here? So we walked over to him, told him what we were doing. He's like, do you want to come in?
Now here's the thing: when we tell this story, we do in the month of October our college lecture circuit. It's called the Paranormal Mystery Tour. This is often our "do as we say, not as we do" lecture, because what we just did, we would not advise.
Sure, we'll come in. To this random guy squatting, he invite us in, so we go in.
Sure.
I mean, and he's got makeshift table, and stuff, but he's also stealing electricity from somewhere.
He's got cable.
This dude's got cable. He's living better than I am. You know what I mean? And we were talking for a few minutes, and it was kind of really awkward, of course, And I asked him his name. He said Eddie Basic. And I remember looking on his little makeshift coffee table, and there's a pack of Basic cigarettes there. I'm like, this guy thinks he's like Kaiser Soze or something,
So after our episode aired on CTV, it got out that yes, there's people living here, and those other people who were being charged rent by this person, the king squatter, I think they called him.
I don't know if that was him or not, but he was living pretty high in the hog, considering.
You're pretty kingly.
Well, tell me something. When you do go to a place to investigate, do you usually have an idea? Does anybody ever tell you, well, these particular kinds of ghosts, or these particular ghosts, or people who were murdered might be here, or you know, do you have any idea of what you're going to find?
In the early days when we first started, it wasn't like everyone was doing this and everyone wasn't hip to it. Now you can say, I'm a paranormal investigator, and people are like, oh, tell me more. It's cool, it's a thing. Hey, we're on TV right now
Everybody's
talking about
interested, right?
it. Back then, and especially in the 80s and the 70s and before, this was really, you didn't talk about this because the paranormal was the occult. Oh, you're weird, you believe in ghosts? Oof.
Oh, right, I know, yeah. You had a stigma
Christine's
about
weird,
it. Yeah, right,
you
she
know?
believes in ghosts.
So now it's
maybe
cool.
she even sees them.
Back then when we started, it was more for our personal curiosity. So, you know, the farm colony, Old Staten Island Hospital, the original places we went to, we weren't called into and given what was there. We were just satisfying our own curiosity. Now, when we go into a place, we have people like Peg who are, this is here, and this is here, and this is here, and this is here, and that's
3
here, and you're
hours,
going to do this.
yeah.
And people are very forthcoming with what they feel or what they have seen.
Just like in the Lizzie Borden house, you know exactly what you're walking into as far as what happened there.
And even then, you still find yourself discovering more.
Really?
Yes.
Do you think she did it? A lot of people said that she didn't.
I can see both sides of it. I mean, we've looked over the court cases, we've looked over the documents, we've looked over the evidence. We just recently had an event there called the retrial of Lizzie Borden, where we dug up the old case and we put Lizzie back on trial with today's attitudes, with today's legal system. I mean, back then, courts were different. Our thoughts on gender and status were different than today. And I mean, was she an OJ? Did she get away with murder? Or was she really innocent of the crimes? So at this event, we put it to the people who came, the attendees, and we said, okay, you guys are the prosecution, you are the defense, here's the evidence, work it out.
And so what conclusions did they come to?
We had reenactors come in and portray. One portrayed Lizzie Borden,
Emma Borden,
the maid,
John Morse.
and John Morse. So those are all 4 reenactors. So they got basically put on a stand, and you know, you had 10 people on each side. The prosecution, the defense. I mean, and it was getting pretty heated
got
for a
heated.
while. It was getting heated, like they were getting up, and it's objection.
You can't handle the truth.
Overruled, you know, because we were the judges. They were getting pretty out of hand. You know, it was getting a little crazy for a bit. But it was not guilty. I think our verdict was.
Well, it was
It's
inconclusive
still
because
inconclusive.
once they became the jury and they couldn't decide one way or another, obviously if you can't agree and you've got to acquit, they couldn't find enough evidence to convict her. We did an investigation after it. Now, this whole thing, in addition to being a social experiment, we considered it a trigger event. By going over this trial, by going over emotion, the people got very emotional. They seemed very invested in the outcome of this case.
Wow.
All that energy that got poured into the location, literally the first EVP session, the first question, we got responses. And throughout the entire night, all the activity had seemed to be elevated because of this stirring up we
So
caused.
you got all the ghosts there riled up.
One particular piece of evidence that one of the attendees got, we were all talking. We had listened to a recording, and as we're all kind of examining it, they were still recording, and you hear all our voices. You hear Chris, you hear some of the women, and then you hear a baby crying.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was no baby there. It
was only
wasn't the cat. It
12:30 at night.
wasn't the people. And we're like, yeah, we definitely heard it, and we heard it twice. Kimbra did some digging. Actually, it's funny. Kenny and Kimbra and Miriam were there for this event.
Okay.
Awesome, Kenny. And she looked into the history before Andrew Borden, that the relatives that lived there in the house, supposedly there was another double murder suicide
It was
involving
like
2
Lizzie's-
children.
In
Lizzie's
that
great
particular
aunt.
house?
Yes.
Before
Lizzie-
all of this, before the
Supposedly,
Lizzie?
yeah, Lizzie's great aunt. I guess you can call it today. They would call it postpartum depression.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, killed her children and then I guess herself or something like
So,
that.
I mean, this establishes a history of murder in that house. So, I mean, we can now line this up to other famous cases like Amityville. Okay, was there something in the house that's causing these people to go over the edge? So maybe Lizzie did
Did you ever
do
go
it.
to Amityville?
No.
I heard that lady that was portrayed on the poltergeist, that little lady with the squeaky voice, said she and her husband, I believe, did like something like 400 investigations, and said that that was the one that scared them the most, that they would never go back to that place again.
We actually know the son, Christopher Quarantino, and I think he's going to be coming out with some new information because of the movie and because of the way the case went. A lot of the facts have been sealed off, and either through legal means or whatever, through somebody's will, I think it was, they're allowed to talk now.
Oh, really?
So I think we're going to be hearing some new things.
Stuff
Yeah.
about the Amityville case, huh?
It's still very much a living case.
It's still alive, yeah. I mean, after all these years later, you know what I mean? It's still alive.
Oh, you know what? Because of the fact that human nature is always going to be interested in these kinds of things, so these things are going to stay alive. Probably 100 years from now, they'll still be talking about it, like
Look at Lizzie
talking
Borden.
about Lizzie Borden.
I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, it's one of the things that while we were there, yes, we're paranormal investigators, we're looking for these things, but if you look at specifically Lizzie Borden, we're going there to stay in the house which a very gruesome double murder took place. That's kind of odd, and I brought up OJ before.
Yeah.
Is his house going to be a bed and breakfast where people want to stay? Oh, that's where...
That's, yeah, right, where he did the number on
This
his...
seems acceptable because, hey, it's a bed and breakfast and we're doing this, but on the flip side, it taps into a very dark side of our psyche.
It's pretty morbid, yeah.
Well, there are a lot of morbid people out there, too.
There are.
True. This is true.
Tell me something. Did you ever go to Salem?
Yes, we actually filmed there last year at this time.
Yeah? And so what'd you come up with there?
What did we come up with? Well, we didn't investigate
We
per
weren't
se.
there to investigate, per se. We were actually filming a sizzle reel for something, but we got to see a lot of cool things. I would love to go back there and do some investigating.
I've been there a few times. It's an interesting place, a very different energy there. And I'm sure that a lot of the spirits of the people who were wrongly accused are probably hanging out there, you know? I'm sure about that. I was there on Halloween a couple times. It's an interesting place on Halloween. You know, it's like
a different culture out
35,000.
there, isn't it?
Very different. You could go to Salem and dress like a witch and walk the streets, and nobody would give you a second look because everybody's walking. It's accepted, you know. Matter of fact, a couple of times I was there for Halloween, so I was wearing a witch outfit, and people actually thought I was a witch. One time I was walking down the street, and all I had on was actually kind of a colorful coat. And,
Nothing underneath?
No, I
Are you
clothes
are you
on.
a
This
good
was- it was
witch
close.
or a bad witch?
Of course, I'm a good witch.
Okay.
Anyway, they have like these little trolleys that you can get on and take a little tour of the place and all.
Sandwich.
And I'm walking down the street. I'm by myself, and I hear this man talking to his children from the trolley, pointing, and he's going, "There's a witch! Look, there's a witch!" And I'm looking around like, "Where? He's pointing at me!"
Oh.
Where? That is a place I would enjoy going back to and actually and doing some
Oh yeah, I got to get back there sometime myself.
Now, here's the thing that's kind of interesting that our visit there and to Lizzie Borden made me think of. Now, Lizzie Borden, Salem, Amityville, like, you know, we're talking about famous cases before and famous locations that we may or may not have been to. All right, for the spirits that are there or may not be there, sure, it's new to me when I go, but for the hundreds of people who came before me asking the same questions, Lizzie, did you do it? Lizzie, did you do it? Emma, do you know who killed you? How do you think they feel?
I was going to say, their spirits live on, and God only knows what they're thinking when they're being probed. So, excuse me.
Literally.
So much being probed for information, and everybody is still up in the air about whether or not she did it. Meanwhile, all these people on the other side know what the whole thing was all about, and it really doesn't let these people rest in peace. Actually,
No.
you know, they're not resting because they're constantly being called upon. You know, people should get to the point where they just leave these poor people alone.
Sometimes we feel that's true.
You know,
I mean, there'll be times when you go to, let's say, a place like Lizzie Borden House, and you might not get any activity. Doesn't mean they're not there. Maybe they just don't want to be bothered that day. It's like, yeah, I've been through this last night. I'm not talking to anybody today.
I'm off today.
You know,
It's my day
it's
off.
my day off. You know, in the
or
afterlife.
maybe they took a walk or something too. They just got
might
out
not,
of there.
They might not be confined to that location. It's just, hey, maybe they come back to visit. Or maybe it's not even them there at this point. Maybe because so many investigators come to this place and are seeking communication with the afterlife, that there are other spirits drawn to that location coming in, not necessarily Abby Borden, Andrew Borden, Lizzie Borden, so whoever's in the vicinity. Oh, there's people here that want to talk to the ghosts, that want to talk to us. That's where I'm going. It's like a beacon.
Well, this is why I often don't like to hear the history or the spirits that are in a place when we first get there, because if the homeowner or the person taking us through says, oh yes, there's a little spirit, oh, his name's Billy, he's over there in the corner, the average person is going to look for Billy in the corner. But that's putting blinders on to everything else that may or may not be there. I might not see the scores of other things that are trying to make contact with me because I'm so focused on finding Billy that I'm denying myself what could possibly be there. So I like to go in fresh with no information, and then after, if we get something, yeah, let's see if we can line it up with what's come before or history that's been documented.
Yeah, well, you're better off going in with no information. This way, what you pick up, you can always check it out later to see if you're on the right track.
You're not tainted by anything if you don't
What
know.
about Sailor Snug Harbor? Remember when we did that movie?
The Snug Harbor, yeah, we did.
That was Snug Harbor. And I had done an investigation there in the governor's mansion with some people that I used to do these things with. And we found out that the spirits there really don't want to be bothered.
Oh, they get bothered a lot.
They get bothered a lot, but and there's a lot of spirits there that have nothing to do with the place. Like you would say, oh, all these snugs are hanging out there and all that. Maybe some of them are, but there's a lot of spirit there. What we found out was that people are just attracted. Spirits are just attracted to the place because they say it is peaceful and unchanging. And that's what spirit likes. They don't like to see all kinds of changes, you know, because change happens every day, everywhere. But in places like Snug Harbor, it doesn't happen because they're preserving it the way it was.
That's what I say, like, if you do renovations in your house, that could stir up activity, like you said, because they don't like change. So things are, you know, oh my God, what are you doing to my house?
So I have an
And that could
alternate view on that, and I know we've talked about this at length. To say that, and it's funny because Ziggity says the same thing, spirits don't like change. To ascribe an attitude on an entire population of beings to say they don't like change, it never sat well with me. But if you look into, say, the concept of feng shui, okay, the way energy flows within the room, I move this here, I move that there, okay, now the energy has a better way to flow.
Yeah.
Again, when I first found out about it, it seemed like hippie new wave stuff that I just couldn't get into. But now, being in the paranormal, it seems to make sense because, yeah, you tear down that wall, the energy that's coming through, maybe that was trapped or stuck, can now flow. And now you're perceiving that energy that was there the entire time. So it's not so much that they don't like change, and again, it's a guess.
Yeah, I mean, all this really is speculation and conjecture.
I know I don't like change, so sure, maybe when I pass on, I won't like change. But at the same time, to say that they don't like change is almost going to that area of hubris that I like to stay away from, where I know what they're thinking.
You can't generalize, in other words.
Yeah. I mean, I like this, but you might like that. So we move this back here. I mean, I trap some energy. I move it back away. It's released.
And conversely, you know, it's the same thing. Just playing devil's advocate with that. They could feel, this is a possibility. Okay, you moved into their home, and now you're making changes to it, the way that they remember it. Let's just say, and maybe every change you make almost takes a little bit of piece of them away. You know what I mean? Almost diminishes them because now that they're less because this is no longer the way it was. It's a possibility. I'm not saying that's what it is.
Well, remember a program that I think it was Sci-Fi had on called Celebrity Ghost Stories? Different celebrities will tell
that was
their
on,
story.
I think, the Bio channel.
Was it?
Celebrity Ghost
Wherever
Stories.
it was.
They filmed at Snug Harbor.
They did?
Yeah, I was in one scene for 3 frames.
3 frames.
Well, and I remember some of them, some of these celebrities had moved into a new home, and that's where their ghost story started, when they moved into a new home. And some of them actually said that they were making changes, and the spirit that lived there before would tell them, "Oh, I like what you're doing," or whatever. So sometimes they do like.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like Brian said, it's like you can't kind of lump, I guess, everything
Yeah.
into.
Really
It's
never
implied.
can.
If it comes down to free will anyway, you couldn't do that to begin with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Well, anyway, though. So, so what other states have you been to?
State of confusion.
So
I
State of
reside
denial.
there.
together, you've done other states.
Yes, we've a lot in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, the whole kind of.
Those
New
two
England
states have been very
area.
hospitable to
Yeah.
us. Very hospitable.
Unlike, unfortunately, New York is not very welcoming to paranormal unless you got, which we don't. So we
Still.
investigate in Jersey and Pennsylvania and Massachusetts. A lot.
So what kind of places have you come across?
I think in the early days, we went for the big abandoned institutions, hospitals, jails, asylums, everything that was a victim of, I guess, lack of funds. And I guess we thank the government for that because, and especially here on Staten Island, we had like the farm colony in Seaview that when tuberculosis was a big deal,
Yeah.
the institutions got larger and larger to house more patients. When the disease got cured and was treatable, there was no need to house them, so they all got to go. And you have this large institution doing nothing, no funds to keep it open, so they close it. It becomes abandoned. The elements start taking over, vandals. That's when the rumors start about 10 sublevels below and someone going crazy and a murder and devil worshippers. And it becomes a second life, sort of, to these locations. And that's what attracted us.
And the same thing, just thinking about, okay, here's a place like the farm colony where how many people have died over the years
That's what I was
from
about to say,
tuberculosis.
yeah.
Is there that kind of energy, even if it's not spirit per se, but is some kind of energy left over, whether it be emotional or whatever?
And especially
yeah.
with mental institutions, like, okay, when they were alive there, they were probably confused, or if they had an altered mental state. We've seen this with the farm colony, that with Willowbrook, patients, when they were discharged, made their way back because that's all they knew, and that was at least comfort to them. So maybe a spirit would make its way back there because it's still confused or
That's
lost.
the only place that ever really knew.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that there are a lot of spirits like that too. You have to wonder though, what does keep spirits in a certain place or makes them haunt a certain place? Because you know, when we're brought up, we're into
Santa Claus.
yeah, we're in, and you know, we're brought
Still
up
into Santa Claus.
to feel that you know there's heaven and hell and all that kind of stuff. But why are you stuck here? You know what I mean? But in the meantime, looks like our time is up.
Oh,
Really,
quickly.
it
That
was
went quick.
such a very interesting conversation that we just had. We could go on and on.
Or we could.
Right?
We'll have to come back.
Right? So, yeah, okay. Anyway, though, so, but like I was said, we were all brought up, you know, that there's a heaven, and that when we die, if we're good, we go to heaven, and if we're evil, we go to hell. And so you have to question, what are these other spirits doing, and what is their story then?
Well, it's hard because when you're young, the world is infinite. You believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny. Everything is possible. When I was a kid, I lived in a high-rise apartment with a terrace. I had no chimney, so Santa made it to the terrace. That made sense. That's how he brought me my toys.
Right.
As you get older, things start getting checked off the list that you know or are told aren't real, and yet you're still expected to believe in a God figure, still expected to believe in things that you're told. And we come into a crisis, and I mean, that's why I became a skeptic, because I felt like I lost so much
Yeah.
that I almost felt betrayed. So in
Well,
this journey,
there are things we have to believe in.
you make your way back, and
Yeah.
we're making our way back.
I see what you mean, yeah. Because there are things that we do have to believe in. We have to believe that there is somebody out there looking out for us, somebody that cares about us and wants us to make it to heaven and all that kind of stuff.
That's an entirely different topic for another
That's
show.
that's right. That's a different topic for a different show. But you know, it's just a thought that why is a spirit stuck in a certain place, and if they are stuck there, that how come they can't get out? How come they can't move on to the light, to, you know, and all of that stuff. And as you said, it's a story for another, that's another show, actually. It would take another hour to talk about all of that.
I'd be happy to come on again and talk about
A few
that.
hours.
Would you like to talk about that sometime? Okay,
Absolutely.
we'll
I
do
would-
that.
I would definitely come on again. We'll talk about stuff like that.
All righty, that would be good. In the meantime, thank you for coming tonight. I do appreciate that you were here. It was so interesting. I love talking about ghosts.
Thank you
and
for
stuff
having
like
us.
that.
I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. And take care now, and good night.